All right, it is 10 o'clock. We are going to go ahead and wait for 1 minute before we get started. Appreciate you joining on time. We have people joining here pretty quick, so 1 minute and we'll get going. All right, we're a minute in. We're going to go ahead and get started. We assume people will be joining over the next minute or two, but we'll get started. We'll make the recording available to everyone that's registered. And this first minute, or this first couple of minutes, is just introductions. I'm Andrew Chaffin. I'm a solution consultant here at Domo and a data science specialist. I've been at Domo 7 years. Prior to Domo, I worked in lab management and research at BYU and Johns Hopkins. And I've loved statistics and analytics ever since my first insignificant p-value. It was a heartbreaker, but I fell in love. Also here, we have Anthony Merrill. He's an associate data scientist on Domo's data science consulting team. He'll be our main presenter today. Anthony has a master's in business intelligence and analytics from the University of Utah. He's a recent addition to our data science consulting team, but he's been doing advanced analytics and Domo automation here for years. Prior to joining our data science consulting team, he worked strictly with our largest and most complex data science pre-sales engagements. So he's been working with data science and our customers for a while now. He has a collaborative and educational focus and gets excited about teaching people about data science principles. As far as format goes for the webinar, we are in a webinar mode here. The presentation itself will be 30 minutes, and then there will be a 15-minute Q&A portion. We do want your questions, and you don't have to wait until the end to send them. Just go ahead and send them during the presentation. If the answer is short and straightforward, I may answer back through the Q&A. Otherwise, we'll answer it in the Q&A portion at the end. I'm not going to interrupt Tony and throw him off his game. If there aren't if there aren't many questions, we may end early. But if there's a lot of questions, we may not get to all of them, as we do have to stop at 45 minutes. If you have questions we didn't answer, or if you're interested in learning more, just reach out to your favorite Domo contact and set up a call with us. With that, Tony, the time is yours.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm excited to be here. So I want to talk briefly about what data science is and how we look at data science in Domo. And our main focus will be showing you how we drive value for our customers to influence the business in a positive way. So one of the common misconceptions with data science is that it's magical and mysterious and that it's somehow mystical in nature. And the reality is when you're looking at the right process, meaning you have a process in place to set you up for success when it comes to data science, you couple that with the right technology, but that also drives true value in the business. So let's talk about the data science journey. A lot of times when people think about data science, they think about this piece, this predictive modeling piece, where they try to focus on artificial intelligence or machine learning or deep learning. And all of this is important and valuable and part of data science. It's not the complete picture. So at Domo and in general, when you're thinking about the data science journey, we need to start with a good foundation. And that's looking at the business intelligence aspect. So understanding the business question, understanding what we're trying to do for the business, and understanding the historical data. What variables go into this outcome, and where does that data exist currently? Once we've identified that, then we can move to the next step. This is the data engineering piece. This is where we start to pull all of the data together. We focus on optimizing the architecture of the data so that it's streaming in seamlessly, and then we have the data transformation phase so that all of our data is combined into one solitary data set with the right unit of analysis so that we're ready for the predictive modeling stage of the journey. Then at this point, we jump right into the predictive modeling stage. And this is where we select the correct model, and we look at all of the different models that we could run and test each one of them and see which one performs the best. Once we have that model selected and we have it running, the next phase is to put that model in production and automate the results of that model. So we automate the data predictions, we look at the model accuracy, and we monitor that over time and make sure that our model is getting better and not worse. And then we also develop actions or interventions. These can be dashboards or metrics or visualizations that help drive action. Ultimately, then, the end goal is to get to some sort of experimental design. This is where we drive a specific outcome in the business. This is where we can answer the question of how can we make that thing happen. It's prescriptive analytics. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. So, when looking at the modeling phase, a lot of times the question comes up, what is the right model for my data set? And how do we select the right model? So a lot of times people, customers will come in and they'll have a specific model in mind that they want for their data. And it's the newest model or the trendiest model. And sometimes the excitement of getting that model is just because it's trending. It actually doesn't, it's not well suited for your use case, or it's not aligned with your business objective. So what we will do is typically with the engagements that we approach, we see them split into two separate categories. Both of these are supervised learning methods. We're either trying to predict something or we're trying to classify something. And the models that I've listed out here are by no means a comprehensive list, but these are just some examples of the modeling that we can do and that we will do, that we'll iterate through several different models and we'll compare them and see which one performs the best. Because ultimately, we don't necessarily care which model is selected. We want to focus on the model that's going to yield us the greatest return, the drive the greatest action, and be most valuable to the business. So once we've found the right solution, then we start thinking about the larger picture. We'll focus on this analytics value path where we take you from information to optimization. And what this looks like is going through the phase of descriptive analytics, of answering the question of what happened, focusing on diagnostic analytics, why did that happen? Then we start to get into the predictive or the foresight thinking of what will happen with predictive analytics, and then into prescriptive analytics of how can we make the good thing happen and how can we prevent the bad thing from happening. A lot of times, customers will have the question in mind of where do we start when we want to do data science? A lot of times we'll ask you the question, do you know what happened? And if you don't clearly know what happened, then we start there. And that's where we focus. We start there and then we try to answer, okay, what were the variables that went into making that thing happen? So why did that happen? What are the variables associated with it? And then once we answer those questions, then we're set up for the predictive and prescriptive analytics. And a lot of times people will want to do the predictive or prescriptive analytics, but they don't even have all their data. They don't have a clear picture of what happened historically. So that's where we start to kind of set the stage. Now, at Domo, we have three main solutions that we focus on to help deliver value in this analytics success path. So the first one is our data science readiness. And this ultimately helps answer the questions of what happened historically, and let's identify some of the variables that influenced that outcome so that we can answer the question of why. Why did that thing happen? And that is the essence of our data science readiness. That's our focus. So if you don't know where to start, let's start there with the data science solution. With the data science readiness. Then we hop into our data science solution. This covers everything from the data science readiness, but this then takes the step into predictive analytics as well, so that we can focus on driving that foresight and answering the question of what will happen. Ultimately then, we want to get to the experimental design and execution. And this does everything that the other two solutions have done, but it takes it a step further and it designs an experiment where we can actually drive a specific outcome, where we can answer the question of how can we make the good things happen and prevent the bad things from happening. Now, this isn't always feasible in a business because it isn't always feasible to break your customers into two groups and randomly assign one group to get poor customer service and the other group to get excellent customer service, and then see how that impacts retention. But obviously that's not a good experimental design use case, but there are many experimental design cases that we can do in a business and that we should do if we can design it correctly. So once we start looking at the data science process, because each solution that we deliver is focused on driving value and driving a value through that process. This little pathway here is what we focus on in the data science consulting realm. So we'll start with this prepare phase, where we assess, we look at your data, we do a diagnostic, we finalize the scope, we make sure we've evaluated the business objective and identified the variables associated with it. And then once we have that nailed down, we will assess the data and make sure that it's combined into one final data set with the proper unit of analysis. And what I mean by unit of analysis, it's quite possibly the most crucial piece in this prepare and assess phase is getting the proper unit of analysis. And what that means is if you're looking at forecasting sales weekly, but you only have data monthly, then that's an issue. We can only forecast sales monthly, right? So finding that unit of analysis and whatever it may be is crucial in getting it down to the final data set. But once we have that, we can assess the data and make sure that we go through some methods of data profiling and look at the relationships between the different variables in the data to really understand it. And then we're on to the analyze phase. This is where we identify the optimal modeling technique. We find the correct model that we want to use. We compare it to other models and pick the best one. We structure the data for that modeling. We make sure that we're reporting on the preliminary findings and that we're refining the model to make it even better. Once we have that in place, we will review the model with you and make sure that you understand exactly what we did and how we did it. And essentially, once we get sign-off on the review phase, then we implement it. This is the most crucial piece in our journey, because implementing the model means that we're storing the scripts, we're productionizing the scripts in Domo, we're making sure that every piece of new data that comes through is scored by our model so that you can constantly get updates. We're making sure that you're monitoring the model accuracy, and that you have a data science solution dashboard that drives action for the business. And then ultimately, the final phase is we hand off the solution. Our team focuses on educating when we're going through these engagements. So we want to make sure that you feel comfortable, that you and your team feel comfortable at the end of this thing to take it and run with it. And we don't just give you a one and done deal. We give you a process to replicate so that your next data science initiative, you know exactly how to go through it. So let's take a look at an example in Domo and how we look at this and the data science process with an actual use case.
So the first phase that we approach is our prepare phase, and that's looking at the data assessment. So we walk you through what your data looks like and some of the business objectives that we're looking to solve as we kind of scope the engagement. We give you this data science inventory assessment quiz that helps you evaluate what is the business outcome that you're looking for, and what are some of the variables that affect that outcome. In addition, we provide you with a metric map to identify those variables that you think are important and give us a list of what exactly we need to look for. And then we combine all that data into one solid data set. Once we have that in a one data set with the outcome, with the right unit of analysis, then we jump into the assess phase, which is our data profiling step. We do a couple of different data profiles. One is a histogram data profile to look at the shape of the data. Obviously, we're looking for normal distributions. We're looking if there's any skew to the data. Clearly, there's some skew to some of these cards with days in pipeline for closed won and closed lost. But we also want to check out if there's any null values in the data. We want to make sure to deal with any missing values because that will affect our model in a negative way. In addition to the histogram data profile, we will analyze and look at the relationships between each variable in the data set, specifically looking at the strength and direction of the relationship. So a little recap of Stats 101. If you're looking at a positive one or a negative one, that is a strong relationship between two variables in the data set. If it is closer to 0, that means that there is a weak or no correlation in the relationships. And so we plot out every single variable to look and make sure that if we have two variables that have a very strong relationship, either positive or negative, we know that that's going to influence our model in an adverse way, that will have unexpected influence in the modeling. And so we'll account for that. In addition, we deep dive a little bit further in the correlation relationships, and we do scatter plot data profile, specifically looking at what is the distribution, what does the shape look like in those relationships. So we'll do things like this example here where we have days in pipeline versus amount of the deal size. And so we can clearly see that this has virtually a non-existent relationship. It's very weak. And we can look at those a couple of different ways. So this assess phase, this data profiling phase, helps us iron down exactly what we're looking for in the data to help us take that next step towards the modeling. So then that jumps us right into the analyze phase, where we build out the model dashboard. Now, this specific use case, we are looking at sales data. We want to predict the closed won accounts in our data set. And we did this with a logistical regression, so that gave us, as a result, a confusion matrix that we can plot out and see exactly, when the actual was a lost deal, did we predict a lost deal, and how many times, or what was the rate at which we predicted a lost deal when it was actually a lost deal? What were the, prevalence of moments where it was actually a won deal and we predicted a loss, or actually a lost deal and we predicted a won? So we can see that broken out based on the modeling that we've done. In addition, we can see, obviously, the times when it was a one deal and we predicted one, which is what we're aiming for. So we can see all of the accuracy measures and whatnot for the confusion matrix. In addition, we can plot out in our Domo storyboard here documentation around the model so that anybody who jumps onto this page can understand exactly what you're doing and why. And that's one of the benefits of Domo. In addition, we want to give you each variable that went into the modeling and what are some of the coefficients and summary stats for each variable so that it's clear and plain for everyone to see. The second step of this modeling process, we did a linear regression to predict the number of days in pipeline for these closed won accounts. So we can see now that we have a baseline model accuracy, and we can compare this baseline model accuracy to how our model performed. So we can see that our model almost doubled what the baseline is. And that's good. And keep in mind as well, a lot of people get hung up on the accuracy. Keep in mind, if we are predicting 100% accuracy, then we know that we did something wrong because nobody knows the future. Nobody knows 100% what's going to happen. If you do, then you and I need to talk after this because we need to go some places and make a lot of money. But 71% for this, that's great. That's what we're looking for. Now, one of the benefits of Domo, of productionizing the model, is doing things like this, where we can actually map out the fit statistics for the model. And in this case, we reran the model every month, you can see. And it gives us exactly what we're doing in the model. We can see that our data set is growing for the training and the validation data set. We're still doing an 80-20 split. And we can see that our R-squared value was getting better from month 1 to month 2. We can see that our error stats are slowly decreasing, which is good. The smaller, the better for some of these. Our min-max accuracy is increasing, which is what we want. Closer to 1 is better. And we can see our MAPE errors is decreasing, and then our actuals versus predicted correlations is increasing. And this is what we want. Now, the beauty of Domo is that we set this, and then we can set an alert and say, if there's any change in our R-squared value, notify us. And you can get notified via your phone, via email, via text message, whatever you want, so that you can always know how your model is performing. If it's getting better, if it's getting worse, because when it comes down to it, we are making business decisions based on this model. We need to know with certainty that the model is still performing as expected. So that's what we endeavor to do at Domo. In addition, we can provide some documentation around what each of these values mean so that anybody can understand what exactly we're looking at for the modeling. Now, I want to jump into kind of behind the scenes what the modeling actually looks like. And we have a couple of different options here. First, I'll highlight, once again, we can map out each variable in our model and what the coefficients and standard errors are for each of those variables. We have documentation around the modeling. And in addition, for this, we did something interesting. We did a backwards look where we took all the data that we had already closed, and we took the opt ID, the close date, and we took the actual days in pipeline and compared that to our predicted, and along with the lower and upper bound to see if we were overestimating, underestimating, or were correct in our estimation. And so we can see that our percentages, our 67%, is very closely aligned with our 72% model accuracy. This is good. This is where we want it to be. Great. So now let's look behind the scenes for a minute and actually see how we build some of these models. So I'm going to jump into our action tiles. These are our data science action tiles. They're pre-built algorithms that are based on R. The programming language R. And how it works is you have a data set that has already been through the prepare and the assess phase. We've already cleaned it, we've already prepped it, we've already got it to the right unit of analysis, and then we're ready to split it into our training and testing data set and drag in one of these prediction tiles so that we can then connect it. And the way these prediction tiles work, it's very much a drag and drop functionality, where you can select your training and testing, you select what we want to predict on, you specify the variables that you're looking to predict on, and this is just a demo, so we're just taking the different date grains. I want to store this in a column called revenue prediction, and in this case I'm going to use a linear regression algorithm, but you could choose random forest. Each of these action tiles provide you with an opportunity to select different algorithms based on what you're doing. Now, these action tiles are for people that understand data science, understand what it takes to get a data set in the proper format, but don't necessarily know or feel comfortable programming in R or Python to develop out that model. So these are a perfect match for that. And once again with Domo, you can then set this data flow to run every time that data set, that base data updates. So this last ran 15 hours ago. We can run that model every time. Because ultimately what we want to do in productionizing the model is we want new data coming in and being scored against our model. And so that's what we endeavor to do. So that's how the action tiles work. Let's take a look at the scripting tiles. So with our data science scripting tiles, we have an R or Python environment, and it very much is an open environment for you to add your own libraries and write whatever script you want, running whatever algorithm you want. This really opens up the box for you so that you can do anything that you really want to do in that regard. And it works the same way. This is the same analysis that I did in the action tiles on this demo data set. We're just splitting into training and testing. We run our linear regression model, and we predict on that. And once again, you can set it to update every time that base data updates. So these are just demos. Let's take a quick look at what a production model looks like. When we actually put the model into production, this is more realistic of what it looks like. Every time this data updates with new data, it's going to run through and be scored by our model that we put in production. And this is after all the testing and the validation that we've done to make sure that it has worked as expected. So all of this then brings us back to the actionable dashboard. Up to this point, everything that we've done in the data science, for the prepping, for the assessing of the data, even analyzing and building out the model, has been good. But if we can't then turn around and build that into an actionable dashboard that the business can use to drive decisions, then everything that we've done has been for nothing. So this is really the crowning jewel, where we implement the model and we build out an actionable dashboard. So it looks something like this. Here is a table card where we can look very easily at the projected probability of closed won accounts for next month. And in this scenario, I have 2 high-risk accounts that are predicted to close next month. So immediately we can jump in, we can notify the account owner, we can let them take action on the specific variables that we think would make that a high-risk account, and we can, increase the likelihood of that account closing and obviously mitigate the risk associated with it. We can see where we're at in the calendar for next month, broken out by territory. In addition, we can look at a couple of different things. We can look at all of the deals next month that are in our probable range of closing. So right now we have 10 deals in the probable range, and we identify that as a 70% or higher likelihood of closing. And so that equates to about, roughly, 300,000 for next month. So in addition, and this is kind of another look at that table card up there, but I want to drill into this one to show you. For next month, we have a high-risk account that is slated for about 75K, and that encompasses those 2 accounts that we looked at prior. We can set an alert on this, and this is where Domo really shines. I can set an alert and say, notify me if we have high-risk accounts for next month. So immediately I can jump in and say, this will be the message that I'll receive on my phone, via email, via text message, that next month we have about 75K in high-risk accounts. Action is needed. We can send these out to the specific account owners. We can send it to the managers. Whoever needs to hear or see this message, we can send it to them. And that's really the point. Once we have the model in production, We want Domo to do the work of notifying us when we need to take action, and that's where Domo shines. So as a final thought then, in addition to some of these actionable dashboards we want to focus on the value associated with data science. We want to make sure that whatever business objective we identify, we are delivering that to an actionable dashboard that the business can use, that at the end of the day, it drives that action.
Okay, so to recap then, when you engage with our Domo Data Science consulting team, we are combining our expertise in data science with your expertise in the business. And we then look at the right process for cleaning the data and for selecting the right model. We couple that with the right technology of having a robust platform that can productionize your model, that can set up alerts on your actionable dashboard so that you can be notified on your mobile device if something needs your attention. And ultimately, that combination makes sure that we drive insights and action that are valuable to the business. This is our ultimate goal, and this is what we strive to do with each engagement. So with that, Andrew, I will pass it back to you for Q&A.
So that concludes the presentation portion of the webinar. We're going to jump into the Q&A section now. There were a couple of questions that were sent in that we answered right in Q&A. In case you maximized your screen and you didn't see those, there were questions about, hey, is this going to be recorded and sent out? Yes, we are recording this, and we will make it available to anyone that's registered. We'll also make it available to anybody at Domo. You can reach out to your favorite Domo contact and they can get you the link. The other question was, what's contained in the training and testing filter squares that we showed in the ETL pipeline? In that particular use case, we actually just filtered on the date, and that allowed us to get the 80-20 split that we wanted. But depending on your use case, you might use different criteria in order to get the correct validation set that you might care about. We had plenty of other questions come in that we saved for the Q&A section, so we'll dive into those right now. If you have other questions, go ahead and send them in. So with that, we will jump in. The first question was, will the data science action tiles eventually have all the algorithms that were listed in the presentation? Anthony, you want to take that?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
So I'm assuming you're referring to the slide where we talked about determining the right model, where we showed classification and prediction algorithms. And I mentioned that it definitely wasn't an exhaustive list. While we're constantly making improvements to the data science action tiles, we reserve the R and Python scripting tiles to open up kind of the options for algorithms. So while we have a select few for the action tiles, when you jump into the scripting tiles, you can run any algorithm that you want, including those listed on that slide. Good question.
There's actually a quick follow-up that just came in that ties in directly to that first question. This next question is, how many different types of models do you offer? You want to take this? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, once again, that's with the action tiles, it's limited to those that are listed. Once you do the Python and the R scripting tiles, it is whatever algorithm you want to use, whatever algorithm you want to implement. That is available because it's a live scripting environment for you to use.
So the next question that came in is, are the scripting tiles automatically turned on? Then we had a couple other questions that seemed to tie into that. What does this cost? Is this an add-on? So let's just tackle all of those questions together into one holistic answer. So by default, unless you are in a specific beta program, the R and Python tiles were not automatically turned on. And if you were in those beta programs, you've probably already heard from your Domo representative that those are an add-on, that we're letting you try those out in beta, but if you'd like to keep them, they're an add-on to Domo that come at an additional cost. And so for most of our customers, they're not automatically turned on. This is something that you opt into It's an add-on feature to Domo, and we typically take the approach, as you've seen in the presentation, of pairing the actual technology with the right consulting service, just like when we sell Domo to a customer. When we sell Domo to a customer, the actual Domo platform, we usually like to identify a use case, assign the right consulting, give value as quickly as possible, and train you in using the tool. Same thing with data science. We want to give you the tool set, but we also want to pair that with the right consulting engagement and identify a good use case so we can get value right away and train you on the best practices for using these tools in Domo. Anything that you'd add to that?
Sure. Yeah, I'll go back briefly to the consulting offerings as well. When we do the data science readiness and the data science solution and the experimental design, we are really giving you this holistic solution so that you have a scripting environment to productionize your models. And that's really the key there. It's one thing to try to run these models on massive data sets on your local machine. It's quite another to try to run it on a server in the cloud. And so Domo offers that seamless integration with the rest of the Domo platform, and we assume all the costs of that. And so that's why it's such a value add to the business.
Yeah, and the other things I'll add to that, as you already probably know and love about Domo, we don't typically try to implement just a single feature at a time. We don't say, okay, now you got this connector, now you got this connector, now you got this type of data flows. Like, we just give you a full platform for doing the work that you need to do. Same thing with the data science suite. We're building all the tool sets needed in order to have a full data science pipeline, in order to have all of the work done in Domo that you'd need to do for these data science projects. Same thing on the consulting side. We've got 3 SKUs that seem to just progress naturally. The data readiness SKU, the full machine learning engagement, and then that experimental design. And those seem to work in a nice stepwise fashion. The next question that we had come in, I've heard about auto modeling tools like AutoML or Data Robot. What do you think about these, and how would you contrast and compare this to your approach? Anthony, you want to take that?
Yeah, absolutely. So those are very awesome and unique tools, but they are limited in a couple of ways, in a couple of very important ways. If you remember, we talked about the data science journey, where a lot of times when people think about data science, they think about just the modeling phase, the predictive modeling phase where we're selecting the machine learning algorithm and getting everything ready to go. The auto modeling tools like AutoML and Data Robot do really well in that phase because they iterate quickly over a bunch of different models and give you some of the scoring for it, which is great. But they assume that you've done your due diligence in prepping the data properly, getting it to the right unit of analysis, and making sure that you have everything ready to go. If you just give it a data set, it's not going to perform the way that you expect it to. And it's commonly said, and we kind of iterate this to all of our customers, 80% of our work in the data science journey is done in understanding the business question, understanding the data, getting the data to the right unit of analysis, and then after the modeling phase, then productionizing the model, building out actionable dashboards. I mean, that is the bulk of what we do. So when you look at that, the auto modeling tools really only help with the 20% of data science work that is the modeling phase.
Well, and if I can add my own 2 cents on that, not that I work in the data science consulting group, but talking to them all the time, it seems like a lot of the data science consulting engagements that we do, we usually have a model or a family of models that we know we're going to use at the end, right from the beginning. And so we are actually doing quite a lot of work to set the data set up so that those models work specifically. Like we're setting up the data so that they work really well with those specific models. And what an AutoML tool basically assumes is that it doesn't matter how your data is organized, right? We're just going to run all these different models and see which one fits the best. And usually a data scientist is usually pretty excited to do that part. After you've done all the hard work of getting your data ready, fitting the models and tuning the parameters, that's the fun part. So hopefully that answered your question. If you feel like we missed part of that, go ahead and ask any extra questions that you have. Is there something that I'm not reading there? Go ahead.
So one just came in that's kind of along the lines of that, and talking about comparing the two different modelings. And those AutoML platforms do allow for simultaneous comparisons of the models, which is great. So one of the things that we do in the consulting org is we will run, like Andrew said, a specific family of models that we know are well suited to your business question and to your data. And we'll run, several different types of models, and we will score them and show in the model dashboard, the validation dashboard, a real-time scoring on how those models are doing, so that you can not only see, immediately on the data that we've trained for it, which model is performing best, but we can also, if needed, keep those active and keep those algorithms running and continuously scoring the data so that we can see if they're improving over time. And that's something that's tremendously valuable, because if you start off and you don't have a ton of data, and so a specific model is going to, maybe do better than another model, but then as you gather more data and it gives more variety in the prediction, then potentially another model could start performing. So we try to account for that as well and make it live so that you can constantly check it if you need to.
Perfect. Thank you. The next question that we had was, how do we know if we are ready for a data science engagement? And I'll give my own 2 cents on this, and then I'll have Anthony chime in and give a little bit more of a technical answer. But there seems to be this inherent pathway in analytics that people follow, and the way that it plays out in Domo specifically is, customers will get Domo. There'll be this learning curve as they, try to figure out how the tool works and get their data in there and get trained up. And once they get through that phase, they seem to build a lot of things. They'll build a million cards, and they'll look at everything every which way. And as they get towards the end of that phase, they realize, oh, now I don't know what's important. And they'll pare things down, and they're really focused on what the real key metrics are, what the most important, valuable metrics are in their business. And once you get to that phase, that's when it makes sense to engage on a data science engagement. When you know what the really important drivers of your business are, the key goals that you have, the key metrics you want to measure your business on, doing a data science engagement where you can look at the feature importance, the things that impact that the most, the levers that you have to drive those things, that's what those data science engagements can do, and that's the appropriate time to engage with us. As far as your data readiness, we have obviously a SKU meant exactly to help you solve that, answer that question, if you will. And what would you add, Anthony, to that?
Yeah, so the data science readiness was built or was derived from this exact situation. And one of the values of the data science readiness is we sit down with you and we work through all of the possible outcomes that you would want to predict on or classify on in your business. And specifically, we focus on the ones that will drive the most value in the business and yield the greatest cost reduction or revenue gain or whatever it is that you're trying to do. That is in our focus. And we help you not only narrow down on the outcome that you want to see, but we help you identify the variables that contribute to that outcome and where those variables are in the different data sets. And if that's data that you're currently collecting, or if it's data that we need to put a process in place to collect. So it's a very cost-effective solution that we've provided to our clients to just get them over that hump and really answer that question of, are they ready? And it's been tremendously valuable so far for our customers to really get them thinking about data science in the proper way. And then when they're ready, they have all the data ready to go, then they engage us again for the rest of the data science solution.
Perfect. So we've got 1 minute left and one question left, so this might work out just perfect. The question is, how long do these data science consulting engagements usually take? I'll do a 2-second answer on that. It depends. Of course it depends. The key driving factors there is, of course, how clean and ready is your data, and then how much availability do you have a data expert on your side, someone that really understands your business, really understands your data, and can engage with our team. Those seem to be the two biggest drivers that I've seen from the outside. Anthony, what would you add?
Yeah, I think it really does depend, and I know that's not a very satisfying answer, but that's the truth. And one of the things that helps kind of speed the process along is engaging first in that data science readiness, mainly because we give you the processes in place to think through the data science in a meaningful way. And so you can spend time on your end to get the people there that really need to be involved in this before you engage in the full solution. And it proves to be very beneficial.
Great. We appreciate the questions. We appreciate the engagement. We hope to work with you. If you would like to know more, talk more to any of us, my email is on the screen. I am the data science specialist for all of the reps at Domo. If you don't want to reach out to me directly, that's fine. Reach out to your favorite Domo contact and they'll loop me in. But we look forward to working with you. Thank you for coming today. We'll get the recording sent out, and have a great afternoon.